So now that we've learned how to create a form, how to give that form out to people, and then how to look at your results, we're going to go one step further and use Google Docs forms to create a self-grading quiz. This means that we'll be making a form just like we did before. In this case, it will be a quiz with answer choices, and then you'll give that to your students. They'll take it online, and then it will automatically grade it for you. So to start off with, keep in mind this is just like a regular form. So the first step is just the same as it was before. We create a new form. Once we're in the Edit Form page, we want to go ahead and uncheck Require Gaston County Schools Sign-In. Now, down the road, if and when we have student accounts in Google for every student, you may want to use Require Gaston County Schools Sign-In and automatically click Respondents Gaston County Schools username. This is basically a way to automatically have students' name go on their paper. But for now, we want to uncheck these. And we want to go ahead and name our quiz. And I'm going to call this one Really Easy Tech Quiz. Now, your first question is going to be a simple one. It's your name, and you need to decide how you want your student's name to show up on here. For example, you may want to do last name, first name, or first name, last. Remember, this is going to go into a spreadsheet, so if you want to look at it alphabetically, I would say that the student should put it in last name first, but that's entirely up to you. In this example, I'm just going to use a simple name. And I can tell them, please type your first and last name. Question type is text, and we definitely want to make this one required because then they cannot accidentally submit a quiz without putting their name on it. And we click Done. Okay, we're going to go to our sample question 2, and this is where we'll type our first question. What do you use to enter text? I'm going to change this to a multiple choice. I'm going to give them the options of keyboard, mouse, or monitor. And I've completed my first question. Now, you'll notice that I did a multiple choice there. That works well, but you can also use the choose from list, and you can also use text or paragraph text, but keep in mind the automatic grading is going to look for an exact match. That means capitalization, that means spelling. So a student could get something right, but spell it incorrectly and they would not get credit for it automatically. So that's something you're going to have to consider. I typically leave it to multiple choice or choose from a list with an occasional text question. Now, I'm going to go ahead and fill out some more questions in this quiz, but I know you don't want to watch me type, so we're going to pause for a second and then come back. We're back, and as you can see, I have filled in some questions on our quiz. Nothing very serious, but they'll do for this practice. Now, your next step, you have to do a few of the things that you did with your regular form. First of all, we're going to give it a theme. You don't have to do this, but I think it looks better. So I'm going to go through and pick a theme. I usually try to do something fairly simple with quizzes because I don't want to distract my students. So I'm going to go with a nice simple. We'll go with the glue. And so you see that's what it's going to look like. Looks pretty good. I'm going to say apply, and now that form has been applied. And I make sure it's saved. And now I can close the quiz. Now that we're back at our Google Docs home screen, you should see your quiz sitting in there just like a form. It may take a second to appear, but it will appear. We can then go into that quiz and we see just like an empty form, has all our categories, all our questions, but we don't have any info yet because no one has taken the quiz. Once again, the way you get this to your students, you could email it to them if your students all had email, but typically the way I used to do this is I would go to the live form, go to live form, and I would grab this URL up here and copy it, and then I would go to my website and I would paste that in under the section for today. And that way the students can go there and click that URL and take the quiz. Remember, the URL for this page is the quiz. You can copy it, you can put it in the web page, you can email it, you can link it, you can write it on the board. This link will work on all web browsers and even mobile devices like iPod Touch or smartphones. Now, the next step, since we're on the live form, is you need to go ahead and take the quiz. And you need to take the quiz because this is going to be your key. And I actually put name in here, the name under there, I put key. So I'm going to go down and take the quiz. And while you're doing this, make sure that your answer choices are correct. If you need to go back in there, remember we showed you how to edit form. And then when I'm done, I'll click submit. And I get the message that my response has been recorded. I'm going to close that. So now you can see here back in the Real Easy Tech Quiz spreadsheet, I have my first answer. That's my key. Alright, at this point, this is where you're going to have your students take your test because you want to go ahead and have these answers in here. So at this point, we can stop. The quiz is prepared. It's ready to give to your students. So I'm going to pause for a minute and I'm going to go back and I'm going to answer the quiz a few times and put some data in there to look at so that we can get an idea of what it's going to look like when you're ready to grade it. Okay, we're back. What I've done is I've gone through and I've taken the quiz a number of times, pretending to be a different student each time. And as the students hit the submit button, their answers appear in this spreadsheet. Now, a couple things to look for. You'll notice you do have the timestamp. This is very useful when using Google Forms to do a quiz because, as you notice, what a timestamp does is it gives you the date and exact time when the quiz was taken, specifically when the submit button is pressed. And since this is a spreadsheet, we can sort the data. So I'm going to go to the name column. I'm going to sort by name. And then I can just take a quick look down here and I can say, oh, look, Mo took the test twice. Okay, and let's see. And looks like he did it once at 9:45 and then once at 9:49. Now, chances are Mo probably was afraid he didn't do too well the first time, and so he may have asked someone the answers and gone back and taken the quiz. But what I would typically do in that situation is I would just go and I would ignore Mo's second quiz by just deleting it. So now we have his first time he's taken the quiz as the only one in there. So I'm going to go ahead and just sort it back by timestamp so the key is up at the top so you can see that a little better. Now, you'll notice we have the answers in here, but we don't have it graded yet. So what we need to do now is use a plugin that will help you grade this quiz. And that plugin is something that someone's created called flubaroo. It's made by a teacher as an add-on to Google Docs forms to allow you to automate the grading. So the first step, we're going to go up to the menu and click Insert. And then we're going to go down here to Script. And this brings up the script gallery. And there are a lot of different scripts for various functions. The one we're looking for is called flubaroo. Strange name, but very useful. You could type flubaroo right here, but I'm just going to click on Education. And if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see there is flubaroo. And I'm going to go ahead and click Install. Now, installing flubaroo does take a moment or two, and you will have to install flubaroo on every quiz that you make. So keep that in mind. This is not just a one-time thing. It's every time you want to make a new quiz to grade it, you will have to install flubaroo. It does take a moment, like I said. Now it says it's installed, but I think it's well worth it. Once it is installed, we can simply close out of this little box that says Script Gallery, and we'll be back here. You'll notice now that we have a flubaroo menu item. And I'm going to come down and I'm going to click Grade Assignment. Now, you'll often see this the first time you run flubaroo on a spreadsheet. You may see it even when you try to install flubaroo. And basically it looks kind of dangerous and says authorization required. But what it really is doing is it's just telling you that you're running a script by a third party that allows access to the spreadsheet and to the ability to send email. and it says only authorize the script if you truly trust the author. Well, I have checked this out. I do truly trust this author, so we're going to go ahead and hit OK. And we get a little box saying now you can run the script. So we have to go back again and say grade assignment, and this launches flubaroo. Now, the first thing flubaroo does is it goes through your spreadsheet and it tries to identify what each of the questions in the assignment are. And it's pretty good about figuring these things out. For example, if you'll notice, it saw name and it's, this identifies a student. And it saw what do you use to enter text, and it said, that's a question that should be worth 1 point. That 1 point is the default value. You can change these if you need to. So if this were actually a question, we could change it to 1 point. You also have the ability to skip grading. If you had an item that's not to be graded, you can tell it to skip it. But in this case, flubaroo did right and figured it out. Once we have this set, there is a continue button. We'll click that. flubaroo thinks for a moment, and it goes to step 2. Now, what it does now is it looks at every row, and it wants to ask you which one of these is the key. This is why we took the answer key at the beginning. So we're going to say, yep, that's the key. Select, and then continue. And at this point, flubaroo is actually grading the assignment. When it's done, it will give you a grading complete, and you can say view grades. And that brings us to this screen. Now, what flubaroo does is it adds a new sheet onto the spreadsheet. It's called grades, and it gives you a breakdown. Possible points 4 because we have 4 questions. Average points, counted submissions and how many people took it, number of low scoring questions, and here you have all of your students' grades. So Larry didn't do too well. Curly did slightly better than Mo. So you can go through and see how everyone did. I have some low performing students here. Perhaps my quiz was a little too difficult. Now, there are some other interesting statistics. It gives you a breakdown by question. One of the things that I also like is that it tells you, it will also give you a breakdown of which questions are low scoring, which I think is interesting. So it gives you some good data analysis tools as well as giving you the actual, doing the actual grading for you. Now, in a perfect world, of course, we would be done, but there is not a perfect world when it comes to school, we know. So chances are a student was out sick or wasn't ready to take the quiz for one reason or another because of a previous absence, and someone's going to have to take that quiz again. Or you may decide to let the students retake the quiz to try and improve their score. The original scores are still in here. You notice there are 2 sheets to the spreadsheet. This one is student submissions. And so you notice someone can still go in and take the quiz again. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go to live form, and imagine we had Joe, who didn't take the test because he was absent. And so the next day comes around and he comes in and he takes the quiz. And let's say Joe has studied pretty well. And Joe clicks submit. And now we see Joe's responses down here. But unfortunately, Joe hasn't been scored because, as we can see here, no Joe. The good thing about flubaroo is that you can always regrade the assignment. And this will allow you to replace the existing grades as it warns you here. We say, yes, we want to continue. So you'll notice we get the same flubaroo steps again. So everything's still the same here. We will pick the same key as before, and then we will hit submit again. flubaroo goes through, it regrades the assignment, and now you'll see Joe is now scored. So flubaroo will allow you to go back and rescore if you need to.